What if the exhaustion you're feeling isn't really about your schedule? It's about unresolved shame, comparison, and the belief that you're never doing enough. Today, we have a therapist and author here with us revealing how toxic productivity quietly shows up in family life and why rest feels impossible, even when you're running on empty. This conversation will help you understand what's really driving the constant busyness and how to start breaking free. Stay tuned. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest here with us, Israa Nasir. She is an award-winning keynote speaker, therapist, and author of Toxic Productivity. Reclaim your time and energy in a world that always demands more. She's the founder of atwell.guide, a global mental health platform with a community of over 350,000 people. Israa has worked with top organizations including Google, Meta, and Yale University, and her insights have been featured in Time, Forbes, and Harvard Business Review. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to have you on the show with us today. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Kendra. I'm really excited for this conversation.
I gotta say, the title of your book really got me. I'm super excited to talk about this because my clients and honestly me, this is something that I always want to talk more about because it is a big topic of conversation among my clients. So what drew you to this and creating this book title?
Yeah, the name came after, which I think is an experience a lot of people have when they read the book as well. They're like, I didn't know there was a name for this thing that I've been feeling. And so it was the same for me. I was experiencing a set of emotions and thoughts, and I didn't really know what the name for it was. The experience was like feeling very underwhelmed by pursuing all of my achievements and doing all the things and not really getting that promised happiness and satisfaction that we are told we will receive if we hit all the check marks. And so I started really deeply wondering why I wasn't feeling satisfied or happy, or why I kept feeling like I needed to pursue things that were external to me in order to feel good and feel connected with my life. Just that kind of existential reflections on purpose and stuff led me to a lot of research on human motivation, behavior change theories, and the science behind what motivates us and how we internalize achievements and things like that. And so that expanded into the book.
If I were to write a book, it would be something like this. And same kind of questions. Obviously, fulfillment therapy talks a lot about these things. But so is this something like just growing up, you knew early on, or this kind of came about later on, like college years and after, just like feeling this restlessness that you can never quite, this bucket you can never quite fill?
I think I really identified it as a thing, not necessarily a positive or a negative, but just a behavior pattern in college. I think like prior to that, it was just the norm. Like your world is so limited when you're in high school because you're so controlled, and where you go and what you do and what's possible for you is within the confines of being young. But I think it was really in undergrad when I went out into meeting different kinds of people and things like that, and feeling this feeling of I have to do all the things. And then it was really in my late 20s, early 30s when I started identifying it as harmful to my mental.
You said you're a therapist. Is this something that you work with a lot with clients. Tell me a little bit about that client load and how that shows up.
Yeah. So I am a trained therapist and I practiced as a therapist for about 6, 7 years. And so a lot of the case vignettes in the book are from that time. I'm now a former therapist. I work instead as a healthcare executive in digital health. So I still work in mental health and I oversee providers like therapists and coaches and stuff like that. But this is something that comes up constantly in clients who present with anxiety. And then when you try to do like this root analysis, like where this anxiety is coming from, a lot of it is like high achieving behavior, high functioning behavior, perfectionism, like all of these emotional drivers that are so unresolved, but they show up as behavior patterns and achievement and activity and external validation.
Absolutely. I know some of the podcasts I listened to for a long time, really great people, but when they would talk about their relentless pace, even I did this in the beginning of the podcast and as a therapist, where it was just constant motion and busyness and that high achieving kind of thing. And you realize in a pretty short amount of time that like, okay, this is not sustainable, especially for people with, it can be a number of things, but a lot of my listeners, it's a busy family lives, all of those things where it comes at a cost. I'm curious what kind of costs in the lives of people you work with.
Yeah, the costs are so many, and the most like quintessential one are the ones that we tend to just look the other way, which is our basic health. People who are struggling with toxic productivity struggle with good sleep, stress management. They might have like low energy and fatigue because kind of chronically stressed out. Then you move away from like the physical symptoms to like the more emotional symptoms. So you might feel like you're more irritable, you're on edge, you are snappier with the people you live or work with. And then you have the more like spirit and mind symptoms, right? The more existential ones where you feel disconnected in life. You feel like, I don't really know what my purpose is. I'm like, I'm just doing the things like someone told me I have to do. And you don't feel very definitely connected to the things that you're doing. There's like 3 layers of cost. And we just have accepted that some of these costs are the bill you pay to be like an ambitious person or the bill that you pay to live in the current modern world, right? Who are you if you're not stressed out? Who are you if you're not busy all the time? If you think about it, when people get together, that's one of the most common things people commiserate over and they talk about and they connect each other with, which is, oh, it's just been so busy. Like it's been a busy holiday season, busy winter, busy spring, right? And so busyness has become this like social lubricant now. And if you're not busy, you feel like you're doing something wrong. And it doesn't matter if your busyness is value aligned, if it's actually giving you a return, if it's leading you closer to the life that you want. Like those are the questions we're not asking. What we're asking is, are we busy? Am I doing enough? Is my calendar full enough? Are my children doing enough? Have I put them in enough after school or whatever? And so I think we're just asking the wrong questions, and that's leading us to unfulfilled lives, just marginally satisfied, chugging along on the autopilot.
Yeah, absolutely. I can second everything that you say. Definitely have noticed all of those things with my clients, even with me before. So sleep, stress management struggles, fatigue, irritability, disconnected, this lack of passion, just that restlessness. So I'm curious, when you started to notice all these things in your life, you talked about it a little bit, but did you just jump right into research and then filling it up almost with that productivity yourself? Or did you find some things that started to help you that you started to implement right away? Let's talk us through that a little bit.
I think originally I was just doing research, like reading research papers, going to bookstores, see what's out there. My curiosity about it, both my internal one and now see it like in other people and my clients at that time, was pulling me to write an essay about it. That's like my learning style. I learn and understand by analyzing the information and like writing it up. Like that helps me understand myself. And so that's what I was doing. It was like a mini project. that I was working on for myself. And I think what that led me to is this insight that there was a big gap between research and self-help. Research was telling us that unresolved emotions will lead you to these unhealthy productivity habits. So if you haven't resolved your need for external validation, and you haven't resolved your perfectionism or your discomfort with being on your own and having empty time, or your moral discomfort with laziness, quote, right? So research is saying that unresolved emotions lead to unhealthy habits, but the self-help literature was saying you just have to change your habits. You need better habits. So it was more superficial, like in the behavior layer. And so my essay really started to fill in that gap. How do we bridge the gap between unresolved emotions and better habits? I think just having that curiosity is always a really good antidote to both burnout, to toxic activity, to feeling uninspired in life. And so that burst of like creative insight was like very helpful for me. And just like pushing me through some more purpose-oriented internal reflections. But it also led me to another insight that a lack of creativity also leads us to feeling dissatisfied and leads us to keeping ourselves too busy, but not really productive. And so that's why in the book, in the last couple of chapters, I do talk about the power of creativity in rest and rejuvenation and how that can actually help reconnect us to our values, to the original things that brought us joy, and can help push us towards the life that we feel good about. And so over time, the things that have helped me a lot in coming and doing my own relationship to achievement is being creative for the sake of being creative. So not being creative, literally build something or get better at something or improve, or share with the world. It was just being creative for the process of it. So doing creative hobbies just for myself for the process of that present moment. And so I did spend a year. Every 3 months, I would switch out a hobby and intentionally stay mediocre at it. Like I wasn't trying to get better at it. And it was really great. It was very freeing.
I love that example because I'm thinking back to when I was an art major for a while in school. And then I was like, no, I'm too much of a perfectionist. Like this is not fun anymore. And so I stopped, and I haven't done a lot of art. And recently I've been like looking for something in my community that I could dive back into. It's all about being very efficient with your time, and whether that's in parenting or without anything, but it's not just for the sake of just being creative, of just doing it. And I love that you spoke to that. I just had to do this in a way that wasn't about presenting it to the world, putting it on my wall, but just very much for this mindful purpose.
I think the way I see it, it's about the process and not the outcome.
Yeah.
And so when we're trying to get better at something, or we want to show it to the world, or we want to monetize it in some way, the focus becomes the outcome completely. But when you decenter the outcome and you completely stay in the process, there is a mindful element to it because you are in the present solely, right? But there is this like liberation from the outcome. So you're not really that future free. Toxic productivity is always keeping you in a state of anxiety about the future. What am I not doing? What am I going to miss out on? Who's having more fun than me? Who's better than me? How did they get this house? Whatever, right? And so we're always in this state of anxiety about the future. And so we're missing our present. And then that loop like repeats itself. You get to the future because now that future becomes your present. Sorry, this is a little abstract, but you just get stuck in that loop. You're constantly looking to tomorrow. Then you get to tomorrow and you continue to look at the next day. So you're never actually experiencing your life because every time you get to the future, you start developing another future that you need to work towards. And so you're never really present. And it shows up in so many ways. In the book, I talk about some very concrete real life examples with dating. If you're looking for a partner, you're dating right now, but you have this toxic productivity mindset, no one will ever be good enough because there's infinite possibilities of finding someone better. And so you're never with the person you're with because you're always like, oh, is this the right person? Could there be someone better? And the dating apps amplify that possibility. If you think about like your work, like you're never appreciating the place you're at. You never appreciate the fact that you got the promotion because you're immediately like, what's next? I need to get that different one, or I need a different title or whatever. You're never really present in your life. That's where the disconnection comes from. That's where the lack of purpose or feeling like I'm not really there, the pilot feeling.
Absolutely. So Israa, I have got to ask, how did you set that down? Like you talked about it's those unresolved emotions. So maybe people go and get counseling. Maybe they've done a lot of that inner work and they still feel like this is just something they can't set down. What would you say to that?
I would say that when you feel like you cannot connect to your own life, right? And that looks different for everybody, right? But if you cannot connect to your own life, that means that your current behaviors and decisions are not aligned with your internal value. Now, whether we are aware of it or not, we all have an internal value compass. It's like the default setting. And it's built through our early childhood experiences, our original caretaker family. And that includes extended family, neighbors, teachers. Who were you around in your formative years? And so this blueprint develops about what is valuable to you and what is very value aligned. But the culture that we grow up in doesn't teach you how to identify your values. A lot of times you hear people say things like, oh, family is a value for me. But family is not a value. Family is something you have. So we don't really have the education to identify our values. And so if anyone, they've done the therapy work and maybe they didn't really get to the values piece because you're trying to focus on like the superficial symptoms of life, I would say is do some value exploration. Really understand what your values are. And research shows that depending on the research you read, there's like between 6 to 8 core human values. These transcend time, culture, gender, age, socioeconomic status, everything, right? What I actually do with people is once you think through what your values are, there's a lot of really great journal exercises. There's some in the book, but there's actual books out there about values. Every time you're saying yes to something, you have to ask yourself, does this actually move me closer to the value I want to live? Or you could even look at all of the things you do in your life, like in a 2-week period, write down all of the decisions you've made. And then assess how many of these are value aligned. And you might see that you're maybe only living 30% aligned with your values. 30% of the things you say yes to are aligned with your values. Like, obviously you're going to feel like you can't set this down. Because internally you desire something. We're built to go towards the things that are value aligned for us. And so if you don't do that, your mind will constantly keep pulling you towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just share a personal example here. I'm always thinking about values. I'm a little bit different breed because I'm a therapist, but I often feel that restlessness and a lot of those things that you identified. Same thing when I'm not living one of my core values that I really try every day, actually. In my morning routine, I ask myself, like, how am I living my values in my day? And the one that I never seem to hit, that's one of the most important ones for me, is that sense of adventure and novelty. And that's harder to get in like daily life as a mom, as a therapist, like to change your routine enough. It requires like a lot more. So I'm thinking about other listeners or viewers right now that might be thinking like, mine's a harder one to achieve on a daily basis. Do you have any thoughts or insights on how people might be able to do that if they feel like it's not so easy to just quickly fill that value, that need?
Yeah, absolutely. Novelty actually is such a great value to pursue in life. And when you're living a life that feels a little disconnected from your values, the instinct is to do something really big that will take you towards it. But we can't really do that. So we have to start in small incremental ways that can lead us towards. The first step is thinking about the things that you can down first. Like all of us are overcommitted, but we can't really add something new if we're already completely full. You're not going to be able to sustain it. If you want to add a new habit or experience that is more value aligned, you first must take something out that is not value aligned. And when I say this, people often are like, no, everything is important. So what are you saying? But then you actually sit down with people and you do the audit, right? You do the time energy audit. You do the urgent versus important matrix. These are all resources in the book, but you can just sit and do them with yourself. You can do it with a friend, a partner, whoever. When you do these audits and you bring to surface all the things that you're committed to, I have never worked with anybody who has not been able to take one thing. And so you take something off, like that's the first step. And the second step is you find the smallest increment of behavior change that will make you value aligned. Things don't need to be big to be impactful. So if you're somebody who's, I want some novelty, it's going to sound really silly, but it actually helps, is you take a different path to drive. Don't take the same driving route, because when we get on the same driving path, like our mind turns off. Like how many times has that happened? Then you arrive at your destination, you're like, I don't even remember driving the last 10 minutes because we're just driving on autopilot. So take a different path, maybe take a little bit of a longer one that might require you to leave 5 minutes early. And so it's like things like that will push your brain to exercise this muscle of accepting something new. Then you can add like, you know what? We go out, let's say as a family, we go out twice a month for dinner. Let's just say that, right? One of those times we're going to go to a new restaurant. No one's going to review it. We're just going to go to a new restaurant, right? No one's going to look at the menu to see what kind of rated dishes there are. That's adding some novelty. Or you might even add in like a ritual to your family, like once a month, we do like a in-home travel. So one night a month, you have Mexican food and you watch some Mexican film. Then next will be Japanese. And next month will be like Indonesian. And so like then you're now slowly building up your appetite to something new. The idea that you're going to insert adventure into your life and it's going to be big is not the most realistic. Everyone can't do the eat, pray, love. And it's not always helpful either. So you want to find these small ways to infuse the value.
I appreciate how you say, like, just making it realistic, and whether for listeners, viewers, whether that's some other value or this one, there's small ways that you can do it. I love your examples, taking a new path, doing different dinners from different countries. And I think we do get stuck in that. Like, it has to be big. I feel so restless and maybe unhappy and lost that if it's not big, then it can't happen. And I've definitely gotten that trap before. I have to go all the way or I'm just not going to feel happy again. I hope part one of this conversation gave you permission to pause and look beneath the surface of your own productivity patterns. If you're ready to go deeper, check out our online courses like Ignite Your Life, a personal growth journey designed to help you create more energy, calm, clarity, and fulfillment in your everyday life. You can find all the details at fulfillmenttherapy.org. And if there's a topic you'd love us to cover, email us at hello@fulfillmenttherapy.org. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for part number 2. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.